Welcome to E-Commerce Insiders, a journey to success, where we dive deep into the heart of e-commerce, uncovering the secrets behind successful online stores and the entrepreneurs who run them. Hosted by Chris Morano, each episode includes insights, strategies, and inspirational stories designed to guide e-commerce store owners on their journey to building remarkable brands. Whether you're starting up or scaling up, we're here to light the way, sharing the experiences of those who have made their mark. Let's get ready to build your dream brand together.
Welcome to today's episode of E-Commerce Insiders, a journey to success, where we dive into the fascinating journey of Anthony Orisses, the innovative mind behind Rarecut, a brand that has revolutionized pocket squares with its patented design. Born and raised in Queens, New York, Anthony brings his unique perspective and relentless drive to the fashion accessory industry. Rarecut stands out not just for its product that promises to keep pocket squares in perfect form without the need for folding, but also for its brand mission to make a meaningful impact. Join us as we explore how Anthony navigated the challenges of entrepreneurship from conception to patenting and beyond, and how Rarecut is more than just an apparel brand, it's a brand with purpose. Whether it's customization for personal or corporate events, supporting local businesses, or contributing to charitable causes, Rarecut is setting a new standard in the fashion accessory space. Don't miss this inspiring story of innovation, perseverance, and purpose. Let's get into the interview. Today, we're excited to have Anthony, the founder of Rarecut, on the show. Rarecut is a patented pocket square, helps men look better with pocket squares that stay up and don't need to be folded. Anthony, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us to discuss business and the e-commerce experience.
Chris, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So before we get into Rarecut specifically and hop into some more business questions, why don't you give our listeners some information about who you are and how you got started on this journey?
Oh yeah, 100%. So again, my name is Anthony Orisses, founder of Rarecut. 38 years old, born and raised in Queens, New York, which is a big part of who I am, how I talk. It's really a big part of my DNA is where I'm from. Always been interested in business. Always wanted to start my own business, just never had the idea up until pretty recently, right? So um, I also sell medical devices. I've been doing that for quite some time. I still do that. And I would actually open up by saying when you do come up with your own concept that you want to run with, that's going to be your own brand, for as long as you can, it's important to try to keep in mind finances. So if you can have a job to help fund your side project or your side hustle, so to speak, it really takes a lot of the pressure off you. So that's a very big component of, as far as my journey. And with this, Chris, to be honest, I just kind of came up with this by observing a need. I'd seen a number of different guys just frustrated with wearing pocket squares, and this is around the time where like Mad Men was really popular. So a lot of guys are like, it was almost like reinvented into the scene, right? Or reintroduced into the scene.
Yep.
And guys were wearing pocket squares, including myself. But so many guys didn't know how to fold them. They'd sink, they'd disappear. They were just, it just something so simple that was unnecessarily complicated. And after hearing enough people complain about it, you're like, hey, that's where a lot of great ideas come from, is while others complain about the problem, right? When you hear a complaint, instead of like jumping on the complaint bandwagon, say, okay, what could be the potential solution? So because of that, and really just focusing in on like, all right, how could this be fixed? That's where the concept of Rarecut came from. And in a nutshell, Rarecut is an apparel brand, but our flagship product is a pocket square that has memory metal inside. So no matter how you bend, twist, or fold it, because of the memory metal, it retains that shape. And when you put it in your pocket, it stays up. And that is our tagline: it stays up.
That's awesome. For anybody who's listening and not watching, definitely we'll leave the show notes, the URL where you guys can find Rarecut, because it actually is, pretty amazing. Myself having to try to use pocket squares for my wedding, it was like with the little flowers and it was just a disaster. Next thing you know, you take the jacket off, pocket squares a mess, and you have to restart. I think it's awesome to hear about how something that is such a problem that no one really ever thinks about then turns into fruition. Now you have a patented product that solves this problem. So, with your background, before we go any further, Yankees or Mets?
Oh man, I'm born and raised in Queens. It would be a sin to not be a Mets fan, and I have plenty of friends who are not. But I am hardcore, all the way Mets guy, all the way.
All right, cool. Well, we
How
can
about yourself?
continue. I was born and raised right outside of Boston, so I'm a Red Sox. So we can, with you being a Mets fan, we can continue the conversation then.
I understand it and I respect it. Good
Yeah,
to know.
very cool. So with the pocket squares themselves, did you have you said you had a background in sales. Was there any background in like fashion, right? So how did, idea problem come into that design aesthetics aspect of it?
Zero, absolutely zero. I like to look good and feel good like everyone else does, but to say I didn't go to Fashion Institute of Technology. I can't say I was up to date on like GQ magazine, what's in, what's not at
Yep.
all. Even still, a lot of people, they'll be like, "Well, Anthony, you're in this business. Like, does this match with this?" And I can help to a degree, but I go, "Listen, I have a friend that's a stylist, and I ask her for advice. I can certainly pass on your request, and I've gotten better through the years.
Yeah.
By no means a stylist of any sort or have any fashion background that I do not have. What I just had was a good idea and a concept,
Yep.
and for those listening who maybe haven't found what their idea is, a lot of times people think this idea that I come up with is going to be has to be this big picture thing, larger than life, has to be in tech. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Could you? Sure. But sometimes just taking an existing issue and finding that solution, or finding a way to make something easier, is all you need. And that's
Yeah.
what we ran with it. And now having the patent after many years, and I got to tell you, Chris, getting a patent, it especially if you're somewhat impatient, like you have to be aggressively patient a lot of times in business, right? But when you're just waiting and waiting, it can get a little frustrating. But man, it taught me so much about the process.
Yeah.
And when we finally got the patent, which was only a couple months ago, and we applied, I want to say in 2017, around the end of
Wow.
2017. Yeah. It just kind of came full circle, and it was just like, it was a great feeling to get that patent.
Yeah.
I'd never even seen one before, and to
Yeah.
hold one in my hands just felt like it was like a major milestone for
Yeah.
Rarecut.
It's a big win.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So when you were going into like the planning and development of the business, were you, give me a little background about sourcing manufacturers? Are you doing that in-house? Are you doing it overseas? Do you have someone locally? What did that process look like to getting the product that you now have and are patented and are selling on your website?
Cool. Yeah. So it's funny, like going into this, I think a lot of people are very intimidated. Like if you haven't started a business before, you're like, where do I even start? Well,
Mm-hmm.
you learn. You learn as you go. I didn't know any of this
Yep.
stuff. I know, and I watched every Shark Tank episode. I listened to tons of podcasts, but nothing prepares you for entrepreneurship like
Just
doing.
doing it.
Yeah,
Yep.
like nothing. So, and I read books. I'm like, I feel like I should know more when I was like in the process, like when you get thrown in,
Yep.
it's like, man, I really, I thought I knew more than I do, but that's part of the game. That's part of the educational process.
Right.
So through a lot of experimentation, I worked with a number of engineers. I worked with, my manufacturer has 40 plus, now 45 years in the garment district in
Awesome.
NYC. Using his connections, and just getting introduced to people that I never would have met on my own. Just
Yep.
like when you know someone that knows the inside world of the fashion business, that put me on the fast track to meeting someone that sews, someone that does this, someone that like
Yep.
all these things, someone that's a master in textiles, someone that is a master with cloth. All these things I would not have. It would have taken me a very long time.
Right.
So yeah, everything is produced and made in the USA, and
Nice.
it's made local. It's actually made in New Jersey, and then we press and print them actually in my garage. So when I say this is a local business, man, I mean this is a
Yep.
local small business all the way.
That's cool. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
How long did that time take? So, like in going through, I mean, especially with something like pocket squares, like I'm on your website, you have all the different colors. It appears different cloth styles as well. Like, how long did it take before you said, like, all right, hey, this is the first round of go to market products?
So that's a great question. So in the beginning, and even still, you have to
Mm-hmm.
do, especially when you're a small business and you're starting out, you kind of have to figure out, all right, who's my core audience? And typically when you're getting started out, it's friends and family and their acquaintances and that
Yep.
expanded network of people within your circle. And using who you are, like I talked about, guy from Queens, man, born and raised. And
Yep.
also my background is Greek. I'm actually wearing a Greek flag pocket square. We didn't even drop this yet, but yeah,
Very
now because
cool.
you know why? Because we have so many Greek friends, family, acquaintances that are just like, hey,
Yep.
more Greek patterns. So I'm like, you got to listen to your audience. So I was like, all right,
Yeah.
what speaks true to who I am, right? Because you put yourself into the brand. The brand, you are the
Yep.
brand. And my audience, I want to give them what they want, what they desire. So if I got a whole bunch of people who are Greek, guess what? Greeks love all Greek things related. I mean, myself
Yep.
included. But I was
Yeah.
like, you know what? Let's drop this Greek flag one, and I expect this one to be a big hit. But I did things in the beginning where I tried to find a blend of who am I, who is Rarecut, and who is my audience. So we came up with some conservative ones, just like polka dot ones for maybe dad, right? And then we came up with, I just so happen to have it right here. We have this one, is like Gotham City Pigeons. So little New York's, our mascot is, we didn't choose them, they chose us. But the NYC mascot is pretty much a pigeon. So we have this in two colors. This was a huge hit. And you give them fun names, Gotham City Pigeons,
Yep.
and people know what it is. And things of that nature. We did a number of Greek ones. We gave them names that maybe not necessarily had to do with the square itself. Like we had a blue one, and we called it Mykonos Blue. Big
Mm-hmm.
hit because you're like, oh, Greek, Mykonos, island in Greece. So
Right.
that's kind of how we started out, was just knowing who our audience was. And a big thing that we did as well, Chris, was after we did our Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
we sent a survey out and we said, what patterns would you guys like to see? And when we saw ones repeating over and over again, we're like, boom, this just answered our questions and is going to help lead us to what's the next step. So by
Right.
asking a pulse on what the people want is what we like to provide.
That's awesome. I mean, I think you hit it right on the head. Like small business, even my first e-com brand and the companies we work with at the agency now, it's so much of understanding that audience. But to your point, like in the very beginning, the data's not there. The pixels have been firing, the analytics aren't firing. You don't really know, like, so rely on the people in your circle. Because hopefully they're supportive and helping out and can provide that information back to you so you can then pivot and keep growing. Um, you mentioned the Kickstarter. I think that's like a huge thing. Obviously, everyone knows about all the different sites that do crowdfunding. Can you elaborate a little more for our listeners on like A, why you chose going the crowdfunding route, and B, how effective was that for starting off your company?
Cool. Yeah. So crowdfunding, I'm a huge fan of. I'm not going to sit here and promote Kickstarter per se. Quite honestly, listen, when somebody does a great job, I give glowing recommendations, and I love to speak goodness of companies that are incredible. This was also during pandemic time when we launched, so
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to get a hold of anyone there. So I had some issues on the back end, but uh, crowdfunding, the concept as a whole, I will stand behind all day, every day. So, crowdfunding, for those who don't know, is when you have a concept, maybe you have a prototype, you're not ready to go to market yet and start your own e commerce site, but you have something that you feel fairly confident about, that you think is a viable product, concept, whatever it may be, and you kind of want to do a test run.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another big thing that's great is that the crowdfunding audience is typically very forgiving. So they know that, hey, there's a company here that thinks they're going to launch on this day. They think they're going to get all the products out in 3 months, but we're experienced consumers of this website. And we know that things don't always go to plan when you're a startup that hasn't even launched yet. So it's very forgiving. We got our product out fairly quickly, but we still had some slight delays. Now, if we didn't have crowdfunding and I had to get these orders out, I would have
Yep.
been panicking like crazy. But because it was
Yep.
crowdfunding, people were like, hey, no worries. Good luck with everything. It was like strangely supportive when
Yep.
now if I get customers on rarecut.com and I'm like, hey, we don't have your order yet, but just stay tuned, I'm going to get some pretty angry feedback and
Right. For
emails.
sure.
So that's a major benefit is that
Yep.
the audience will work with you as you tinker and figure things out.
Yep.
Starting a crowdfunding campaign takes a lot of work. And then when you start a website, it's almost like you're doing it twice because just as much effort went into making my Kickstarter campaign, probably more, than into my website. I'd say it was infinitely, I knew more, I was more educated, but the Kickstarter website was, I mean, talk about your fast track to education. I learned a lot in there. And then, as I always allude to, Rarecut was my pandemic baby. I launched in September of 2020, midst of the pandemic, where everyone, including the founder, couldn't go anywhere. We had no
Yep.
options. I was wearing sweats every day. And you're like, well, I was ready to launch this in March, which would have been the worst time to launch
Yeah.
of all time
Yeah.
in our lifetime, probably. So I
Yep.
put it off. And the thing is, when you're ready to launch, and it's just like it was my every waking thought, and even my subconscious, I dream about this.
Yep.
And I had to keep putting off this launch. I was like, you know what? Let's get to it. So out of impatience, call whatever you will, we kind of learned a little bit more about coronavirus and, numbers were dropping and it seemed a little
Yep.
more steady. I was like, oh, let's launch in September. We did a 30-day campaign. We did over 50K in sales. Again, during a pandemic where no one's getting dressed. So
Yeah.
for me, crowdfunding proved to be very valuable because we tested the proof of concept, we were validated, and we're like, we're onto something here. So for
Yep.
me, it was a really good entry point into entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. I mean, what a story. In the pandemic thing, that's when I got bored during COVID. Now I'm in Florida, so our experiences were
Nice.
slightly different, but
I'd say very different. Yeah.
yeah, and our agency slowed down a little bit. New client growth was a little hindered. And so like I looked at different options, and that's when I first started my e-com brand. So very similar. It was kind of just, mine was more out of boredom and needing some excitement in the marketing world. And for you to be a fashion brand at a time where literally no one is caring about anything fashion wise or getting dressed up to go out, like you said, sweatpants, like, shorts. It's just kind of, so it's definitely a testament. I think it's interesting with the Kickstarter thing. It's almost like people who find a great product on the crowdfunding sites almost have like an altruistic mindset, like, hey, I'm helping be a part of this thing that I believe in.
Yes.
And that's where you get those very like, hey man, I get it. If just keep me posted, opposed to like launch is a whole different story. They don't have that brain connection. They see something that they're interested in, they want to buy it, and then they hear that they're not going to get it when they want it, and now you're getting customer service emails.
Yeah. To your point, Chris, I always give this analogy when it comes to, it doesn't have to be through crowdfunding, but a brand that's in its infancy stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like going out to a small music venue and discovering a band and then them blowing up, and you're
Yep.
forever like, oh, I ride or die with this band, and
Yeah.
and then you see them like, they're headlining Coachella or something. And you're like, I knew those guys back when they were just getting started. So like,
Yep.
you have a certain I would say a soft spot, but you
Yep.
also have you're invested in that band, or in my case, the brand, and the
Right.
entrepreneur, because you were there in the beginning. And I also want to point out, it's so important to, I mean, we know this, but I'm going to reiterate it because it's so valuable. Always share your journey. I was sharing my journey for years before we launched. I would go into a warehouse, or I go into a fabric store, which I didn't know what I was doing in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be like, take my phone. I'd be like, hey guys, I'm here in a fabric store, and I don't even know what these fabrics are called behind me. I try to read them. I definitely like botched it completely. And I'm like, what color do you guys like better? What pattern do you like more? And then people would vote or they'd comment. and I did that for quite on and off for like I'd say like 2 years. So people would see me out, or they'd be like, "Hey man, what's going on with Rarecut? Like, what's happening? Give us an update." So they'd always bring it up to me. I'm like, "Wow." And they didn't necessarily comment on Instagram, but you don't realize how many people are watching, noticing, and paying attention. And when it was time to launch, I reached out to pretty much everyone I knew. I said, "Hey, remember Rarecut? I've been talking about it for like forever. We're actually getting ready to launch on this date and this time. Would it be cool if I, send you a calendar invite for when we launch? Just in the event you want to support." Everyone, actually with the exception of one person was like no, but everyone else, literally everyone else was like, yeah, absolutely, let me know. And because of that, I was able to get funded right away. Like, I
Yep.
mean, dude, the first 10 minutes was the most exhilarating 10 minutes of my entire life. Just
Yep.
seeing sale was just like, it was beautiful. It was like overwhelmingly positive. There was a moment I'll never forget in my entire life. But you do that by promoting your brand, and sometimes people are like, is this too much? And it's not. And here's why:
Yep.
because how many times on Instagram it's somebody's birthday, and you're going through stories, and it's like birthday, 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 birthday. You keep clicking, and by like the fifth post, you're like, oh, it's her birthday. Like,
Yeah.
it didn't even register in your brain. So if you think you're overdoing it, you're not. So just keep pushing your message out there. People will notice
Definitely.
and they will pay attention.
Yeah, I completely agree. I have two questions that have spun off of that. First one being, we see a lot, and I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today about um, founder brands, right? In which the founder is kind of the face. Um, for my e-commerce store, didn't choose to do that. I was like, I don't want to be the face because of my agency. I am. All the YouTube videos, every piece of content is based around me. For you, have you taken that kind of brand, Rarecut, and then are you the face, would you say, of Rarecut? Like, are you on the social media channels promoting it, talking about things coming up, or are you utilizing like user generated content, customer testimonials, actors per se? Like, what avenue have you decided to run with for Rarecut?
Great question. So I'll start off by saying UGC is user generated content is my absolute favorite. So whoever's listening, keep sending us your stuff. We will post you and we appreciate it.
Yep.
But no, for this brand, I definitely am the face and I like being the face of it. Now, I don't want to be the model. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? It's different to be the model of your brand and be the face of your brand. Like, and those are two very different things. And I think in the beginning, listen, when you're just starting out, if you have to be, you have to be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if that's within your budget, then fine. But nothing says low budget when you're not just the face of your brand, but also the model for everything. Like,
Yep.
all right, it's one thing like if I just don't show my head, but if I'm like, hey, it's the founder and he's posing for everything,
Yeah.
just not how I want to conduct the business, to be honest.
You're just all over the website with every pocket square
Yeah,
everywhere. Yeah, it doesn't work.
too much, man. And
Yep.
one time we had a model back out last minute, and I was like, shit, what do I do? And the photographer's like, dude, I only have an hour left and you're already dressed. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
but this is like a year before we even launched. So I
Mm-hmm.
reluctantly did it, whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's very different to be the model and to be the face of your brand. And this is something that I feel like I can speak to better than anyone, because
Mm-hmm.
I dress the part. I can talk the talk about it, and no one's gonna convey the message better than the founder themselves. It's just not going to happen. So for this, I'm very comfortable being the face of that. Now,
Yep.
for every business I ever, founded or actually haven't founded in the future, if there's something else, depends. It's very situationally based. With this, I think it's a match that makes sense, but I think
Yep.
that's really case by case basis. But I don't also, to your point, I really like shooting content. I like using my humor.
Mm-hmm.
I got the class clown award in fourth grade. It's a very important distinction and
That's up
award
there
that I
with the
still
first
have.
day of sales. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I
Yep.
do like to incorporate humor, but I'm actually working with. Listen, at some point you have to delegate,
Right.
and I like this is the best education I've ever gone through, and I went to shout out to Hofstra, great college, but
Mm-hmm.
nothing prepared me for this like doing, as we said earlier. So I am actually outsourcing and delegating more than ever. I have a content person I'm working with. She's actually coming over tomorrow. We're going to shoot some stuff. I'm sure I'll be in a lot of it. But I also
Yep.
have another girl who I'm working with where I'm just like, let's switch it up. And she's like, do you want it? When she makes content, she asked if I wanted to be in it. I go, I'd rather you and your friends be in these, and we'll split it up 50
Yep.
50 because you don't want to be in every single promo. Or at
Right.
least I don't.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. We kind of have the same thing here at our agency. We have like the company channels, and then we have my channels.
Right.
Right. The
Right.
company ones are a blend of the team and everyone working together and smiling and having fun. And then there's my content, which still is, valuable in the business aspect of it. So jumping from Kickstarter, you mentioned your website. So as being a marketing guy, give me the rundown. Did you go with the standard Shopify build out? Walk me through what has worked from that aspect of it, the website and marketing side of it for growth.
Sure. Well, I'll say this. In the beginning, I was working with someone, and I'm drawing a blank on the name. It was not Shopify. It wasn't Wix. It's one for, and if you say the name and happen to know it, but you have to know programming and code really to optimize the website.
Yep.
And it was driving me crazy because, especially when it's your first company or anything you care about, right? You want it to be a certain way. You want it to be as close to perfect as possible. So I remember contacting him and be like, hey, this doesn't look so. Can we change this word and this and that? And I really felt like, it was a good sport about it. But I was like, man, I wish I could just do this myself. I'm sure he's not so thrilled about going back to make these minor tweaks. But to me, these minor tweaks mean a lot.
Important.
And,
Right.
and I remember, I understand. I'm sure he was a little frustrated at times, but I was too because I'm paying. I want it done a certain way. And I was like, this sucks. I feel like almost powerless in this situation. And I have to get a hold of him. He's in a different time zone. So at some point, a buddy of mine just said, you really should abandon ship on this website and
Mm-hmm.
or this server, I guess, and just completely change to Shopify. And showed me how easy it was. And I go, what if I wanted to change XYZ? They go, look, and they taught me in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, game over. I immediately switched. So I, like I mentioned earlier, if a company provides an outstanding service, I'm very pleased and happy to give them props. And Shopify is incredible, and their customer service is really great too. Very easy to work with, and has just made my life as an entrepreneur a whole lot easier because you can make changes in no time.
Yeah. And this isn't like an affiliate. I don't even have an affiliate link for Shopify. It's just like the best. We work with so many of those. You might have been talking about Magento, WooCommerce. I mean, we work with all of them, but like if anyone's starting out, my go-to is just Shopify. I mean, out of the box, like you can start a business, product shipping, all of that. It's just, so I was curious on your website, like you guys did a great job. What have you done in terms of marketing to generate new customers, sales? Has there anything worked, anything you've tried that didn't work that you would think the listeners might find some value in?
So I'm currently kind of going through that right now, right? I'll tell you this: if you don't have your marketing and your advertisements down, don't do A/B or don't do testing during the holidays. Not a good idea.
No.
Not a good idea. I learned the
Very
hard way.
expensive. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yep.
Just wait. So our next big test, it's really our Super Bowl, is Father's Day.
Okay.
So for Father's Day, right now, and for the next, I'd say, month and a half, not solely Father's Day, but the vast majority will be Father's Day testing and seeing what works, what doesn't. So when we're ready to roll ads, we're going to do that. But one thing that I've done that has been a mistake, as I mentioned earlier, was trying to do everything myself because I'm self funded. I don't have any investors on this. It's just me. So I'd be like, hey, I know social media. If I can do it, why can't I? But then you also have to realize at some point in your journey of entrepreneurship, where is my time better invested? I'd rather be strategizing, finding ways to grow the business and just outsource it to someone else. for not everything, not all content, but a large amount of it. So to kind of answer your question, I'm still in that testing phase. I'm still trying to figure a lot of things out, and the big test is about to be conducted. I mean, when I say big test, I mean like the biggest test we've done will be for this Father's Day. My goal is to sell all our inventory, and that'll be a good problem to have. And I'll cross that bridge once we get there. But that is the goal right now, and it starts. Preparation starts now.
Yep. Now with the Father's Day, are you going to be doing paid ads, and is it that type
Yes.
of go to market launch sale type play?
Yeah, we're gonna be, of course, we're gonna be running ads. We're gonna be doing things with certain affiliates. We're gonna be. I have a dear friend of mine who I'm working with. She hates hearing this, but she is. She's getting insta famous. She is, and we're
Nice.
doing a skit with her. Shout out Christina Mavronas. She's blowing up, and she was cool enough to work with me and do a skit using humor and her
Yep.
father in the skit. So it's gonna be something that I think people don't want to be sold to necessarily, but
Right.
when you make them laugh or move them in any sort of way, people pay attention. So I'm trying to, like, years ago, and I guess it's part of the learning process, we'd have just a picture of one, and we'd say, this is this pattern and it's for sale. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't our ads doing well? What is wrong with, you know what I mean? And then you take
Yeah.
it personally and just like, you know what, that ad might have worked 10 years ago. It ain't
Right.
working anymore. So it's
Right.
just evolving and keeping up with trends. I'm still learning, I'm still very much learning
Yep.
in this process, but um, yeah. So to answer your question, paid ads, of
Push.
course,
Yep.
affiliates, and just we want to do a bunch of like giveaways, just grow our audience as well. And we're still in the process of doing that. So
That's awesome.
startup
Yeah, I
life.
think I've been doing digital marketing. I'm 35. I've been doing it since I was 21 out of college, and it's always learning. I mean, marketing, like at this point in time, it's moving so fast in terms of platforms, different trends, different, we have a social media manager here who's like updating me on things. And I'm like, what is that? And I feel like I'm at 35, 36, almost like the old man in the room because things move so fast, that's awesome. On a sidebar, if pre-launch, if you want us to review the ad setup and structure, make sure everything looks in accordance, just shoot me a note. Be happy to review it.
Very cool. Thank
So for Rarecut, where do you see yourself? What is the move to success for you? Where are you seeing this journey taking you? Hopefully, next, I don't know, typical 3 to 5 years question.
Love that. So yeah, a few things. So um, getting the patent was big. So if you asked me 3 years ago, I would have said getting the patent. Now we got the patent, but
Yep.
what do we do as people who are always growing? You got to say, hey, what's the next step? What's next? So now we have the patent, which is a huge win. So now a few different avenues. We're getting into customization. So
Very
if
cool.
people want to have their business and they want to have their logo all over it, boom, we got you. If you want to have your wedding monogram, say, and have the date, and you want to put that all over the pocket square as groomsmen gifts, then we have you on that. So I
Very
think
cool.
that's going to open up a huge market. I think too, if we get into perhaps we get into, hey, you want to put your dog all over it or your grandkid or whatever,
Yeah,
who's doing that? So we want to be the first. And I think there's going to be a huge, huge market for that. I think that's going to be game changing for us. We're just about ready for it. And yeah, if anyone's hearing this and is interested, by all means, just DM me, send me a message, and we can work something out. But it's something we're just going to kind of launch slowly, and then when we're going to expand, everyone's going to know about it. So
that's
that,
awesome.
thank you. Yeah, that we do things for. So yeah, this is not just a company with a product; it's a brand with a purpose, and I'm all about living life on purpose and having a purpose. And the purpose for this, what makes Rarecut worth listening to, tuning into? What are we doing different aside from having a patent? And that's cool. Don't get me wrong. But we like to feature people and stories. And during the pandemic, we had a campaign that we launched for shop small, shop local. We showcased small business owners that were going through their own journeys, and we showcased them. We had this really, really awesome shop local pocket square. We also made shirts because we had a lot of people saying, "Hey, I'd love to support. Do you have shirts?" We're like, why
Mm-hmm.
not? Why don't we just make shirts? And we did. Those
Right.
flew off the shelves, and we gave a portion of the proceeds to the Barstool Foundation. We did the same thing with breast cancer awareness. We featured women and family members going through their journeys, teamed up with the foundation. You know, we put our money where our mouth was, and
Right.
did that. We did Movember. We're doing something very soon that you'll see. I'm sure once this is launched with a public school in Harlem, with these kids. I call them young gentlemen. These kids are awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love these kids. They're so cool, and they're in a mentorship program after school that they voluntarily decide to be at. So instead of after school going home and playing video games or just like wandering, they are
Yep.
there with a purpose, and they are just finding ways to better themselves in their future. So we're going to be showcasing and featuring them, getting to know them as individuals, and giving a portion of proceeds from Pocket Square and the shirts, and the shirts are
Mm-hmm.
fire. They really are. They're my favorite shirts we made thus far, to the
Awesome.
mentoring program. So things like that. So yeah, where do I see Rarecut? I see us continuing to be a purpose-driven business. And yes, we started with pocket squares, and we will forever rock these and continue to evolve them and make them better and better, more patterns for sure. But this
Yep.
is our almost like our Trojan horse into the apparel business, because we found something niche, and it's
Mm-hmm.
good to be niche. It's very good to be niche, but
Yep.
we also have our eyes on expanding and broadening our horizons. So that's part of the 3 to 5 year plan, as you asked earlier. That's part of the big picture for us.
That's awesome. I love it. I mean, it's so funny. Like the apparel. Interviewed someone last week, very niche sportswear apparel. And then I think so. These shirts, Built Basics. I
Oh
saw an
yeah,
Instagram ad.
hundred
Literally have
percent.
40 of the same T-shirts in my closet because like you just find this one brand, and now I'm getting served that they're going with the bomber jackets and the pants. Like,
Cool.
so to your point, the evolution of a business and having that idea of like starting at pocket squares, but pocket squares are just a single accessory of the rest of the outfit. So
Yes.
I love the plan, man. I think, in brands with a purpose, I love that tagline. It's always important in conversations with everybody. Everyone kind of has their why,
Right.
why do they do it? And I'm sure just like I do, and everybody who has a business, like there are times where you're like, man, I don't know, throw up the hands or whatever, but like that why is the reason you keep going.
Big time.
I love helping the mentoring, dude. You got a great message and definitely really cool brand and product. The customization though is gold.
Yeah, I'm pumped
I
for that, man.
that we're working with an ecom brand just launched in the sports industry, and they're doing custom, and it's just like I could see, especially for bride, groomsmen, you get custom. It's just a fantastic idea. So if you have the fulfillment for that, you already have those kinks ironed out. I think that's definitely a power move.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things too where I thank you for saying that, man, because I've told we haven't told everyone yet, but I feel
Yep.
comfortable, of course, telling you and your audience that too.
Yep.
We're extremely excited for that, and that's what gets me like, I don't know, like the world of customization. Like when someone can have a one of anything that's unique to them. I mean,
Yep.
I totally understand the appeal there. We saw with Nike sneakers where you could
Mm-hmm.
custom it to customize it to your color, and there's
Yeah.
just
Back
little
in the day,
differences.
what was that called?
Nike ID.
ID. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
Nike ID. People were all about that. And
Yep.
that's what opened my eyes to the power of customization. And people were paying like a lot of money, like an
Mm-hmm.
absurd amount of money. And I'm like, these kind of look like that other pair. And they're like, no, this pair has a tint of red in the back. I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
didn't even see that. But
It's a
you know what?
different
Wait till it's
green
one.
hue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's certainly a market for it. So
For sure. It's funny talking about the customization. I don't know. I forget the sock brand. We're all over Instagram a couple of years ago. And for
oh yeah.
Christmas or my birthday, my wife actually got me a pair of socks that were covered in her face. And she probably spent
Love that.
$30 on a
Love
single
that.
pair of socks. So
Wow.
to your point, that personalization means that I'm willing to spend a little bit more money for it, which on the business side for you, your AOV, your orders, your margins are a little bit more inflated because like there's that sentimental aspect that the consumer is willing to spend for.
Right.
And then from the business standpoint, you're making out a little bit better and you're providing an experience. When I open up those socks, I was like, what the hell is this?
Yes.
So on the same token for groomsmen or bridal, like all these different things, like that's now you're sharing an experience. Oh, where'd you get that? Rarecut.com.
Right. Yes.
Fire. Yeah.
Yep.
Great, man.
Love that. And thank you for sharing the sock example too, because yeah, I've yet to get a pair of custom socks, but I can only imagine like you just describing it, right? Like the moment somebody opens the box, the ungifting process is just like you put a smile on someone's face. That made it worth it to the gift giver
Right.
to see your face, to see you get something that's one of one that no
Yeah.
one else has. I mean, there's value there. So yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, definitely. Like I still have them. I don't wear them frequently, but they are hilarious, and
It's
if we
awesome.
think about consumer goods, especially like Apple, how many millions and billions of dollars have they spent on the process of experiencing the box opening?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So like there's such a psychological or emotional aspect of getting something and having that experience be, superb. So
Love that.
I think you guys will crush it. Maybe we'll order some Blue
Thanks.
Water Marketing pocket squares.
Cool. Love that. Yeah. Let me know, man.
For sure. So we're getting to the end of this. I know you have another podcast to get to. Where can people find us? Give us the elevator pitch on rarecut.com so everyone can follow along and hopefully buy some pocket squares.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. So we're consistent across the board. We are Rarecut. It's spelled two words, but on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, we're all at Rarecut,
Mm-hmm.
Rarecut, just as it sounds. It's
Yep.
spelt. And if you want to follow me on my personal journey, feel free as well. It's at Anthony Orisses, Orisses, all S like Sam. And our website, we have the domain rarecut.com. So we make things nice and easy for the listeners.
Yep.
It's consistent across the board. Check us out. We have a special going right now. 2 for $99 plus free shipping domestic, of course, in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And, with Father's Day coming up, keep us in mind. Makes a great gift for pops.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you very much for hopping on with us. What an awesome journey. And I wish you all the best of success, man. You got a great product.
Yeah, really appreciate this interview and